Hey guys, figured we'd talk tonight about a bunch of different subjects. One is a more recent thing with all the racism going on in America, and I've always felt like, I mean, they have a new study that just came out about the people in Germany still thinking that Jewish are bad people from the Nazis, and you know, many people say that children don't learn to be racist. You know, they don't know about racism until their parents tell them about it, and if it's just not talked about, they'll never know about it. You know, because there's really no reason for them to know about it. So I think a lot of this stuff is propagated by the parents and the families and the things like that. And I would say personally that a lot of the racism is brought up by whites, but also by the other cultures. You know, by blacks and Spanish and whatnot. You know, it seems like the more you use racism as a reason why you didn't get your way, it's kind of the same thing with the feminists. You know, if you're making up reasons for why you didn't get picked or why you didn't get something that you thought you deserved or you wanted, which we don't deserve anything in life, you have to work for everything you get. So if you think you feel you deserve something for free, and if you didn't get it, then it's because of your race, well, you're playing the victim card. You're just being a victim. Yeah, and the more we raise that up, the more we talk about it, the more we basically make it true. You know, you can't like say if you did something stupid in school, you know, and people are typically anything that happens, people just kind of forget about it. It doesn't last long. So when you think about something like 9/11, something like that, you know, even something that dramatic, if you don't talk about that, after a few years people forget about it. You know, 10 years down the line nobody even knows what's going on. So, and it doesn't take that long, 5-10 years, people forget about it. But we've got the war and we've got people talking about it and all this stuff, so it stays like in popular conversation. And the same thing happens with race. You know, if every time you're doing something you say, oh, it's because of this or it's because of that, and you always blame it on your race or you blame it on your culture or something that has to do with that, then it continues to be there. If you take credit for it or take ownership of it and say it's because of me, you know, I did something, you know, then it loses its power, you know. And in many cases maybe it is because of your race, but pointing it out isn't going to make it not be about your race. You know, I find it hard to not have racism if you're going to keep bringing it up all the time. You know, and every time, you know, whites talk about anything that has to do with Hispanics or blacks or whatever, it's like you can't even talk about the subject without having somebody say, you're racist, you know. Well, you know, if that's what you think and that's what you want to believe in, then I think it's you that would have the problem, not me, you know. Recently I've seen these MGTOW guys talking about not masturbating and not having sex with women, and almost turning MGTOW into like a religion where they're going to abstain from sex even if it's their own sexuality. And they're turning it into a religion. It's like they're coming from a religious standpoint and they're going to turn this into a religion. It's retarded. You know, for me, I'm a vegan, and I meet these same kind of people in veganism, where they take veganism where you're trying to just eat healthy and do things that are right for the environment, for the planet, and they turn it into this, you know, hippy-dippy, you know, let's do yoga, you know, all this thing, talking about crystals and, you know, just complete retarded shit that just makes people think we're a bunch of idiots, you know. You know, when you're a vegan, a lot of people say like, oh well, you can't eat this, or you can't eat that, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. If you're constantly being told like you can't eat something that you like, or you can't do something you like, you're obviously not going to stay with that. And that's the same thing that's going on here. You know, they're trying to act like holier than thou. There's no reason for you to not masturbate if you don't have a girlfriend. You know, there's no reason. It's just stupid. You know, you're not going to gain anything. You're not going to gain any clarity by not masturbating. It's retarded. It's like keeping something from yourself when there's no reason for it. It just makes no sense. It's stupid. You know, something else I'm noticing as well is there's, with the feminism, they don't seem to recognize that men, from the time you're born until the time you die, you're always having to prove yourself. You know, like how am I able to prove myself to women, to society, on how good I am and how much of a person I am, and how much worth I am. You know, do I have a good job? Do I have a stable income? Do I have a car? You know, things like this. These are more and more of a problem. You know, and it's becoming to where a lot of men don't want to go through all the bullshit. Like I said in another video, you know, if you take on a woman, you take on debt. They basically want you to be a debt machine. You know, they want to just suck off you. You know, like a baby calf. You know, where they can take as much as they can from you, and when they've got as much as they want, they can then get rid of you. But women don't have to do that. Women know who they are and don't have to prove themselves from their first menstruation. You know, as soon as they're born and they're grown up to be these little things. Like think like, as a man, can you go into a bar with no money, with nothing, and come out drunk with a place to stay for the night and some dick? You know, if you're a man, can you do that? Can you go to a bar with no money and come out with a place to stay for the night, pussy, and be drunk? You might if you're Brad Pitt, you know, if you're Johnny Depp, but if you're just a normal guy, we can't do that. We can't do that because our dicks aren't a hot commodity, you know. And in MGTOW, we hope to show that eventually women will start to realize that their pussy isn't a hot commodity, you know. You know, as a man, it's harder to become a teacher. It's harder to become a daycare worker. It's hard to become all these things because women have made it to seem like because of their equality that they always talk about, they've made it to where if a man likes to take care of children or wants to teach little children, like say in grade school, stuff like that, that you're some predator. You're a predator. So it's an unfair assessment because you might like to, you know, teach kids and play with kids and do things with kids, you know. So if you want to be a daycare worker or something like that, there must be something wrong with you. And that's the reason why 75% of teachers in the United States are women. Which means if I go to school, which I did, for teaching, it's harder for me to find a job than a woman in the teaching industry because nobody wants to hire a male teacher. They want to hire female teachers. So where's the equality there? Now, women, this is one that'll get the feminists rolling. Women use men as a social escort service, basically. They're never without one, though they say how bad they are, you know. So you'll hear them talk about how bad men are, but they never are without one. They're never without using one. They're monkey branching from one to another. They're always looking for better men with more money, And then they, on the back of that, they're talking about how bad men are and how bad they're treated and how they're used and all these things. But this is how they live. Basically, they live as leeches on society, leeching off of men, you know, and trying to get their hooks into men by having a baby so that they can get a free ride for the rest of their lives, you know. And the nice thing, the thing that's really nice about being MGTOW is that eventually women will realize that as they get older, they lose all that. The only reason why they have that is because they're beautiful as they're young. A lot of men want to date you when you're young. When you get into the 45 to 55 range, if you haven't, especially if you haven't kept your body up, you know, lots of them just blow up and become big, fat, nasty cunts. So if you do that, the people who want to fuck you and who will allow you to use them drops off. And the thing is these women have absolutely no personality. So that's all they have. Like I was saying before, you know, when you look on Facebook and you look on Instagram and all these things, and you'll see all these women that actually think that they have something to offer you, you know, and all they have to offer you is beauty. And I can get that from looking on the internet. I can get that from looking at magazines. I don't need to get that from you, and I don't need to pay for that as well. I don't need to pay for that. You know, I just watched a video not too long ago, which I'll link in the description below, of some just vile, vapid cunts from Britain who use men, who just get on on Twitter, and they use men and they steal from them and take things from them and use them and never give them sex, but they act like men don't know that they're wanting to have sex, but their whole goal is to steal as much as they can from men. And as women get older, they'll realize that they really have nothing to offer, and that's when they get even worse. They become even more these horrible feminists, where they become bitter, you know, and they start to realize that that feminism has not brought sexual happiness, you know. Think about the losers, these loser feminists now. There's this one loser on I'm not even going to talk about her, but I'm sure anybody in the MGTOW knows who she is. This little feminist, vapid woman with glasses and blonde hair, and she's talking about how you should always ask about every 2 or 3 minutes when you're wanting to have sex with a woman. You should ask her every 2 or 3 minutes if she's all right, you know. And that doesn't spoil the mood at all, you know, when you're taking a girl to your house, you know, things like this. The fact is, and this is something that women may not want to hear, but if you promise, or not promise, but if you say, I'm going to go to your house, you are committing to sex. That's just a fact. You don't offer to go to a man's house. Like if you're at a bar and you've just met a man, and he says, hey, you want to come over to my house for some coffee, you know, and you say, yeah, sure, and then you go to his house, and then he says, you know, he wants to have sex with you, and you go, oh my God. You acting that way you're completely naive and stupid, because you've already committed. You've already basically said, your body language says that you want to have sex with him. You've stated that because you have went to his home. You don't go to somebody's home unless you're wanting to have sex with them. So if you want to act like you're prim and proper, and like men should ask you all this stuff, and men should do these things. If they say, hey, you want to come to my house for coffee, you say, no, I'm not that type of girl, you know. But if you actually go to his house and then something happens, and then you go, oh, he raped me, sorry, it doesn't work that way, you know. But this is their ignorant, childish idea of what it means to be raped and what it means to be a victim, and you know, that you can go out to to a bar and wear things that have your boobs popping out, you know, and then men are not supposed to look at your boobs, you know. Men are not supposed to look at you in a sexual manner when you're dressed in a sexual manner, you know. When you're dressed like a $10 floozy, and then men look at you, and then you're like, oh, I can't believe you looked at me. It's fucking stupid. How can you get upset when you're wearing glass hooker shoes that are 10-inch heels, a mini skirt that's so small you can almost see your fucking camel toe, you got a halter top on that has your breasts almost popping out of it, and then you're wearing a bag, and then some guy looks at you and goes, Jesus Christ, and you're like, quit looking at me, fucking sexist bastard. You know, this is how feminists are. I should be able to wear what I want. Yeah, you should. And I should be able to look at you if you're dressed like a fucking prostitute. You know? It's a free country. As far as the last I checked, anyways. Yeah, when you dress for success, you know, basically what I mean by that is like when you go to one of these bars dressed like that, you know, you have to be ready to put out, you know, because there is no rape culture, okay? If you're a woman and you're dressed to the nines and you go to a bar and some guy buys you some drinks, dances with you, talks with you, you strike up a conversation and you go home with him, there's no rape there. You're not obligated to have sex with him. But if you go to that person's house, you've already consented. There's already consent there. If you go to a man's house after you first met him, or at any time, if you go to his home, you are consenting to sex. You don't get to go to a man's house after having dinner with him and him buying you drinks and you guys having fun, and then you go to his house and then you just sit down and watch a movie and then go home. If you're at his home, you are consenting to sex. You know, unless you say, no, take me home, then you're not. But so many women do this thing where some guy will have sex with them once and then not call them again, and then this is a typical thing that's happening right now. Women will say, he raped me. He took me to his house and raped me because he used me for sex, and then that's really all he really wanted from me. So he bought me dinner, he took me out to the movies, took me to his house, had sex with me, and then he hasn't called me since. So because he hasn't called me since, and I never reported a rape, all of a sudden he's a rapist now, you know. Because a lot of these cases, the police even notice that they report the rape like over a month, even if not more, after it actually happened. And by doing that, there's no proof. It's he said, she said, you know. She said I raped her. I say I didn't. There's really no rape test kit, you know, to see if she was raped. So it's all on her and him. And in the court system, we always talk about equality with the feminists. There's no equality. You know, if a man says a woman raped him, almost 100% of the time, if it was a case where it was a month later, even if it was the same day, in fact, you're not gonna have anything you can do in a court. But as a woman, it could be a year later, it could be 5 years later, and she can actually get you into court and maybe even put you in jail or in prison, even if it's a false claim. You know, the chances of that happening are very high. Now the other thing we got is women are the highest graduates right now in America. They're the ones going to college the most, they're the ones graduating the most, but the problem is they're not going into STEMs. They're not going into these STEM classes. They're getting like liberal arts degrees and teaching degrees and things like this, and they're taking on low-paying wages and low-paying jobs. And the thing is when you go to college for some of these programs, it's much easier to pass the classes. And a lot of these other things are mathematics and you know, geology and things like this. These are very high-paying jobs, but they're also very highly technical. And most women don't go into these STEM researchers. And because there's not a lot of money, because all the women are taking up all of the grants and things like that, there's less money for men who want to go into STEM research. So we're actually having a deficit of people in America that companies can hire for these STEM companies. So there's lots of companies hiring out, and they're hiring out for these H-1B visas, which are people that are coming from other countries. They're having to actually bring people in from other countries, and they always first try to look for Americans to fill them, but there's no Americans to fill them because there's not very many people that are being graduated. So instead of trying to help to give more funding for STEM and try to get more men, because it's proven that men are better at STEM stuff, they have people like Obama trying to say that we should get more women into STEM, but women don't want to be in STEM. That's the whole thing. You know, they want equality, but they want equality on their terms, and their terms are men are below us. Everything that men do is below us. They are subjugated to us. They are a smaller species than us. That's their idea of equality. We're the most important. Men are worthless. That's their idea of equality. You know. Now in Japan, we have these hostess clubs that I haven't talked about yet, and a lot of people know about them. But we have these men's hostess clubs and women's hostess clubs, and like I was talking about before, there's some culture here where there's so many beautiful women and so many really, like, it's kind of funny, there's almost more cute looking guys than women. You know, the men take such good care of them. They're like, they put makeup on, they pluck their eyebrows, all that kind of stuff. They almost look better than the women. So they work at these hostess clubs, and there's these, you know, 30-year-old fat women that are really not very good looking at all, that work for companies and stuff like that, that make really good money. And in some cases, they'll come to these clubs to talk to some like 22-year-old guy. They might be like 38 or even in their 40s, and they'll talk to this guy, and they'll pay like $10,000 a night to talk to just to talk. You know, not to even get any sex. They'll buy them presents, they'll buy them all this stuff, and it's men and women that do this. And they get like Louis Vuittons and Gucci and Hermes and Chanel and all these high dollar things. And whether it's men or women, you're basically extracting wealth from people that all they want is companionship. And this is where I think the MGTOW and Herbivore movement are going to do really good things, because the companionship aspect is, people are starting to realize in MGTOW and in Herbivore that you can get that from a dog. You don't need a person to fill that need, you know, and in some cases you can get by without it altogether. So this whole need of wanting to constantly have somebody to be there for you, to have somebody to come home to. It sounds nice, and it sounds like a movie. It sounds like something that you might want, but it's not a movie. You know, that's real life. And when you take that on, you take on more than just somebody to come home to. And a lot of men are starting to realize that, and starting to realize that that's not worth it. It's not worth having something like that to come home to if it's not worth coming home to. You know, look, most guys will tell you that are married, the worst part about work is when you're on your way home. You know, especially if your wife was upset earlier when she called you at lunch, or if she was upset when you left for in the morning, or something like that. So you know, when you come home after all day, you've been at work all day long, and all day long you're like, ah, geez, when I get home, what's she gonna say? You know, that's the worst thing. If you're at work and you don't have any wife, you don't have a girlfriend, and you're coming home, you're just like, oh, I'm gonna go home and watch a movie, and, you know, take a shower, sit in the bath for a little while, play with the dog, you know, eat something, go to bed. And you don't have that stress. You know, it's nice to not have that stress. Now, I'll leave in the description below this video for you guys to watch. It's really, really, like, bad, you know, and it shows you, it should show men that don't know anything about the Herbivore and MGTOW why you might want to become one. and why you might want to try to not get stuck in this cycle of women using you and not really giving you anything, you know. And even if they do, in some cases women use sex, and they'll use it in a way where they drag it out as long as they can until they think they're going to lose you, and they're going to lose that paycheck. They're going to lose that little bit of money that they get off you. So they give you sex once. And once they've done that, then they can hold it out. And sometimes it works and sometimes it don't. If you were really good in bed, the guy might want you again. Might even want to date you. So if you can get him hooked like that, then you're fine. But if all he wanted to do was fuck you, and if he had to work so hard to get that fuck, which is why some of them are really good at knowing this, if he had to work too hard to get it, he's not going to want it. But if he had to work a little bit, he might think he can work a little bit more and get it again, you know. But if you made it so hard for him to get it, then he's not going to want to work for it again. So sometimes they just go. They just had sex with you once and then they go. But these kind of girls have lots of other guys, you know. So a lot of times they're able to find somebody else, you know. This video is called Sex, Lies, and Rinsing Guys. This new term they've coined, I guess, is rinsing. And they basically take your money. That's what their whole game is. They contact you on Twitter, and they're like models. And in the cases of these British girls that were on here, they weren't even pretty, to tell you the truth. You know, they definitely weren't pretty. And their whole game is to have you see them on Twitter and have all these airbrushed pictures of them, and then they get you to buy them shoes and buy them all kinds of things, and they talk about you like an object, you know, like you're just a bank book, you know. It's really sad, but I'll put that in the description below. So that's it for tonight. It's nice talking to you guys. If you got any questions, comments, whatever, leave them in the descriptions below. Share, like, and subscribe, and have a good night.